They said no one could survive on Xylon-9. Then they found a human colony thriving there. First contact on the impossible planet. The research vessel Empirical Truth shuddered violently as it descended through Xylon-9's atmosphere. Commander Vaznik gripped his control panel, all four of his arms bracing against the tremors that threatened to tear the reinforced hull apart. Atmospheric composition is deteriorating rapidly, warned Specialist Drell, his translucent skin pulsing with stress pigments. Sulfuric acid concentrations at 28% and rising. Temperature approaching 400 Kelvin. Lieutenant Nira Talorn checked her readings again, refusing to believe what the sensors were telling her. The preliminary scans were wrong. This isn't a Class 9 death world. It's at least a Class 12. Nothing survives these conditions. Yet here they were, following an automated distress beacon that had been transmitting steadily for the past 3 months. A beacon that, according to all records, could not exist. Signal origin point is 12 kilometers northeast of our position, announced Commander Vaznik, his voice steady despite the warning lights flashing across his console. Maintaining current trajectory. The ship plunged through billowing clouds of amber and crimson, each layer more caustic than the last. Their specialized shielding, designed specifically for this mission, was already showing signs of molecular degradation. The Empirical Truth was the most advanced scientific vessel in the Galactic Union fleet, and even it could only withstand these conditions for approximately 48 hours before critical systems failure. Visual confirmation of terrain, said Drell, activating the main view screen. The landscape that appeared before them seemed to belong to a nightmare realm. Jagged obsidian mountains pierced the horizon, their peaks dissolving in the corrosive atmosphere. Vast lakes of bubbling liquid methane dotted plains of crystalline silicates. Electrical storms raged across the sky, bolts of energy powerful enough to vaporize standard spacecraft. There's the beacon, Nira pointed to a blinking indicator on her screen. But that's impossible. It's coming from a valley floor, completely exposed to the elements. Commander Vaznik adjusted their heading. Let's see what's broadcasting, then get out before we become permanent residents. The ship descended into a wide canyon, its walls providing minimal shelter from the howling acidic winds. As they neared the source of the signal, everyone on the bridge fell silent. Nestled in the valley floor was a structure, not the wreckage they'd expected, but an intact building. No, a compound, constructed of materials that shouldn't have been able to withstand Xylon-9's hostile environment for more than a few hours. Scan that structure, ordered Vaznik, his voice barely above a whisper. Drell's fingers moved across his console. It's made of local materials, processed volcanic glass, some kind of resin composite I'd never seen before. And Commander, there are life signs inside. Multiple life signs. Classification, Vaznik demanded. Nira checked her readings, then checked them again. Human, she finally answered. They're human. The silence that followed was absolute. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as a resilient species, but this defied all scientific understanding. No species, not even the most durable extremophiles in the Union database, had survived on Xylon-9 for more than a few hours. Bring us down, ordered Vaznik. Full environmental protocols. No one exits without a Class A survival suit. The Empirical Truth landed on a flat expanse of heat-fused silicates. Through the viewports, they could see the compound more clearly now, a series of interconnected domes and tunnels spreading across nearly half a kilometer. Some areas appeared to be agricultural pods, others possibly living quarters. They've built a colony, Nira said in disbelief. A permanent colony. As the team prepared to disembark, donning survival suits rated for the most extreme environments known to the Union, the ship's communication system activated. Unidentified vessel, this is Xylon-9 Settlement Alpha. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. The voice was unmistakably human, calm and businesslike, as if receiving visitors on a garden world rather than the most hostile environment ever recorded. Vaznik exchanged glances with his officers before responding. "This is Commander Vaznik of the Galactic Union science vessel Empirical Truth. We detected your distress beacon." A pause, then laughter came through the speakers. "Distress beacon? That's not distress. That's our invitation. We've been hoping someone would come check us out eventually." The team stood frozen in confusion. "Invitation? If you're planning to come out, I should warn you. Those suits won't last long in our atmosphere. The acid eats through that polymer composite in about 30 minutes. You're welcome to use our airlock instead. We've got atmosphere regulators." Nara looked at her readings again. "Commander, they're right. Our suits are already showing degradation, and we haven't even stepped outside yet." Vaznik considered their options. Standard protocol prohibited entering unknown structures without thorough analysis, but their own equipment was failing faster than anticipated. "We'll accept your invitation," he finally responded. "Excellent. Follow the lighted path to the Eastern Dome. See you soon." As they prepared to disembark, Specialist Drell voiced what they were all thinking. "How are they surviving here? It's scientifically impossible." "We're about to find out," replied Commander Vaznik. The team exited their vessel, immediately feeling the strain on their protection systems. The surface of Xylon-9 was even more hellish up close. The ground itself seemed alive with caustic energy, vibrating beneath their boots. They moved quickly along a path marked with glowing blue stones toward the nearest dome. As they approached, a section of the structure slid open, revealing an airlock chamber. Once inside, decontamination protocols activated automatically, stripping away the corrosive elements clinging to their suits. When the inner door opened, they found themselves face to face with a smiling human woman. "Welcome to Xylon-9, she said, extending her hand. "I'm Lena Hargrove, agricultural specialist. Sorry about the dramatic entrance, but we don't get many visitors." She wore no protective gear, just standard work clothes and boots. Behind her stretched a vast indoor garden, plants of various species growing in orderly rows under artificial light. "This is impossible," whispered Nira, removing her helmet to reveal her astonishment. "That's what they all say," replied Lena with a grin. "Come on, Gareth will want to meet you. He's been waiting for someone to notice us for almost a year now." As they followed Lena deeper into the compound, Commander Vaznik sent a private message to his superiors. "Discovery on Xylon-9 defies all scientific understanding. Humans not only surviving but thriving in conditions that would kill any other species in minutes. Request immediate classification upgrade for humans and full research authorization." The response came almost instantly. "Observe. Report. Do not interfere. Director Cullix en route." Vaznik looked at the humans moving comfortably through their settlement, tending to plants, operating machinery, living ordinary lives on a planet that should have dissolved their flesh on contact. Whatever mysteries Xylon-9 held, one thing was becoming frighteningly clear. The Galactic Union had severely underestimated humanity's capacity for survival. The defiance of death. Commander Vaznik and his team followed Lena through corridors lined with thriving vegetation, plants that had no business growing on a world like Xylon-9. Everything they'd been taught about biological adaptation and environmental limitations was being challenged with each step they took. "Our compound has 7 main sections," Lena explained, gesturing to lighted panels that displayed a map of the settlement. "Hydroponics, living quarters, research, engineering, medical, recreation, and what we call the workshop. That's where Gareth spends most of his time." Lieutenant Nira couldn't tear her gaze from the impossible garden surrounding them. "These plants, they shouldn't be able to survive here. The radiation alone would destroy cellular cohesion." Lena smiled, running her fingers along a vine heavy with what appeared to be tomatoes. "You'd be surprised what life can adapt to when given the chance. We'd modified these ourselves, spliced in genes from Xylon's native microorganisms." "Native microorganisms?" Specialist Drell's translucent skin pulsed with shock. Our preliminary scans detected no native life forms. Your scans were looking in the wrong places, came a new voice. A tall human male approached, wiping his hands on a cloth stained with an iridescent blue substance. His face bore scars that spoke of past hardships, but his eyes held a determined intensity. Gareth Porter, he introduced himself, leader of this little experiment in extreme habitation. Commander Vaznik straightened to his full height, towering over the human. Commander Vaznik, Galactic Union Science Division. Your presence here defies all established environmental adaptation theories. Gareth laughed. Yeah, we get that a lot. Or we would, if anyone ever visited. He led them into a circular chamber where several other humans were working at various stations. Unlike the sterile, automated labs of Union vessels, this space hummed with a controlled chaos. Handwritten notes covered walls, specimens floated in containers of amber fluid, and maps of the surrounding terrain were pinned to every available surface. Welcome to humanity's greatest achievement that nobody knows about, Gareth announced. 38 humans living where nothing should survive. We've been here for 19 months. Naira's scientific mind struggled to process this information. But how? The atmospheric composition alone should have dissolved our lungs. Finished another human, this one older with graying hair and eyes that crinkled at the corners. I'm Thomas Reeves, lead engineer. And you're right. When we first landed, we lost 2 people in the first hour. Their suits failed. A somber silence fell over the room at this mention of casualties. But we learned, continued Thomas. Firstly, that nothing from off-world would last here. The atmosphere, the radiation, the temperature fluctuations, they'd break down standard materials too quickly. Gareth nodded. So we adapted, used local resources. The microorganisms here have evolved remarkable properties. They survive by essentially becoming one with the environment rather than fighting against it. He led them to a workstation where a microscope projected images onto a screen. The microbes they observed seemed to shift and flow, their cellular structures constantly rearranging. We call them flux organisms, explained Lena. They don't resist the corrosive environment. They incorporate it into their biological processes. We've been integrating modified versions into everything from our building materials to our own bodies. Your own bodies. Commander Vaznik couldn't hide his alarm. You've been altering your physiology. Gareth rolled up his sleeve, revealing strange, subtle patterns beneath his skin, almost like circuitry, but organic and pulsing faintly. Targeted symbiosis, he explained. The microbes form a protective layer in our lung tissue, our skin, even our digestive system. They convert the toxic elements into compounds our bodies can process. Specialist Drell moved closer, his scientist's curiosity overcoming his caution. This is beyond any bioengineering the Union has achieved. The ethical protocols alone would prevent. We didn't have the luxury of ethical debates, Thomas interrupted. Our ship crashed. Rescue was impossible. It was adapt or die. Your ship? Vaznik inquired. There's no record of any authorized expedition to Xylon-9. The humans exchanged glances. We weren't exactly authorized, Gareth admitted. We were part of a privately funded research group studying extreme environments. When the funding dried up and the project was ordered terminated, we disagreed with that decision. You stole a ship, Vaznik stated, not as an accusation, but as fact. We borrowed a ship, corrected Thomas with a slight smile, to continue essential research. Unfortunately, we miscalculated Xylon-9's gravitational anomalies. The crash destroyed most of our equipment. Lena guided them to a large window overlooking a vast chamber where humans worked on what appeared to be agricultural experiments. That forced us to innovate. When we couldn't rely on our technology, we turned to biology. But why continue? Nira asked. Why not attempt to signal for rescue immediately? Because we discovered something here worth staying for, Gareth said, his voice lowering. Something that changes everything we thought we knew about adaptation and survival. He led them deeper into the compound. Through airlocks and chambers, until they reached a sealed door marked with warning symbols. "What you're about to see doesn't leave this room," he warned, looking each of them in the eye. "The Union would quarantine this entire planet if they knew." Commander Vaznik received another message from his superiors. Director Kellex arriving within 12 hours. Contained situation until arrival. "I cannot make such promises," Vaznik replied honestly. "My duty is to the Galactic Union." Gareth studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Fair enough. But see for yourself first, then decide." The door slid open, revealing a chamber unlike any other in the compound. At its center stood a pillar of swirling energy, contained within a specialized field. The energy shifted between colors, blues, purples, reds, pulsing like a heartbeat. "We call it the Nexus," explained Thomas. "It's a naturally occurring phenomenon, buried deep underground until our crash disturbed the surface layer. It's alive," Lena added softly. "Not life as we understand it, but a form of conscious energy. It communicates, learns, and grows." Specialist Drell's instruments were going haywire. "These readings are impossible. It's generating energy patterns I've never seen before. The Nexus is what allows life to exist here at all," continued Gareth. "The flux organisms are its creation, extensions of itself, designed to transform this hostile environment into something sustainable. And it's been helping us," added Lena, "teaching us how to adapt, how to survive. In return, we're helping it understand other forms of life." Commander Vaznik approached the energy column cautiously. "If what you're saying is true, this discovery could revolutionize our understanding of life itself, or be weaponized by those who see its potential for other applications," Gareth countered. "The energy output alone could power entire star systems. Imagine what military minds would do with that." Before Vaznik could respond, alarms blared throughout the compound. Thomas rushed to a nearby console. "We've got incoming," he announced grimly. "Large vessel entering atmosphere. Union markings." Vaznik received his final message from headquarters. "Stand by for Director Kellex. Quarantine protocols authorized. Classification, Omega level threat." The commander looked at the humans who had achieved the impossible, then at the mysterious energy being they had formed a relationship with. What he decided in the next few moments would determine not only their fate, but potentially the course of interspecies relations for generations to come. "Your director is coming to contain this discovery," Gareth stated, reading the alien's expression perfectly. "Not to study it, but to control it, or destroy it if control isn't possible. That is standard protocol for unknown phenomena of this magnitude," Vaznik admitted. Lena stepped forward. "Commander, what you've seen here isn't just about human survival. It's about cooperation between fundamentally different forms of life. The Nexus could teach us all how to adapt to environments we once thought impossible." Thomas added quietly, "Humanity didn't just survive Xylon-9. We learned to communicate with it." Commander Vaznik made his decision. Reaching to his communication device, he opened a channel to the approaching vessel. "Director Kellex, this is Commander Vaznik. I must advise against your current approach. The situation on Xylon-9 is far more complex than initially reported." "Explain, Commander," came the cold reply. Vaznik looked at the humans, beings who had remade themselves at the cellular level to survive where nothing should, who had formed a relationship with an entity beyond Union understanding. "The humans here have achieved something remarkable," he said carefully. "Not conquest of this world, but a symbiosis with it. I believe this merits careful study rather than containment." He knew his career might end with this decision, but some discoveries transcended protocol. As Director Kellex's ship descended through Xylon-9's caustic atmosphere, the fate of the human settlement and the extraordinary entity they had befriended hung in the balance. The impossible colony continued its impossible existence, a testament to humanity's most defining characteristic. When faced with certain death, they didn't merely survive. They found a way to thrive. The negotiation of worlds. Director Kellix's ship descended through the swirling amber clouds of Xylon-9 with military precision. Unlike the science vessel Empirical Truth, this craft bore the unmistakable reinforced hull and weapons arrays of a Union enforcement vessel. Its name, the Absolute Law, projected from its sides in glowing script. Commander Vaznik stood at the landing pad with Gareth and Lena, watching as the massive ship settled onto the crystalline surface, its specialized landing gear immediately beginning to corrode despite advanced protective measures. "Your director doesn't waste time," Gareth remarked, noting the rapid deployment of armed security drones around the perimeter. "Director Kellix is known for efficiency," Vaznik replied, his forearms clasped tightly behind his back in a formal posture, "and for inflexibility regarding Union protocol." Lena observed the ship's hull already showing signs of degradation. "Their shielding won't last long in our atmosphere, 2 hours at most." "Then we have 2 hours to convince them," Vaznik said. The ship's main airlock cycled, and a tall, slender figure emerged, encased in the most advanced environmental suit the Union could produce. Director Kellix moved with deliberate grace despite the cumbersome protection, flanked by 4 security officers. "Commander Vaznik," the director's voice came through external speakers, cold and precise. "I expected you to have the subjects contained by now." Vaznik straightened. "Director, may I present Gareth Porter and Lena Hargrove, representatives of the human settlement." The director's helmet turned toward the humans, revealing a face of geometric precision. Angular features, iridescent scales in perfectly symmetrical patterns, and eyes with vertical pupils that contracted sharply. "Interesting," Kellix said, though the tone conveyed clinical detachment rather than genuine interest. "You appear to be breathing our atmosphere without protection. Explain." "Actually," Gareth replied calmly, "it's your atmosphere that needs protection from us. Your suits are already failing. Perhaps we should continue this conversation inside where we can all be comfortable." The director's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of irritation that only Vaznik recognized. "Very well. Lead on." Inside the main compound, Director Kellix removed the helmet with obvious reluctance, revealing more of the emerald scales that covered his entire body. His security team remained fully suited, weapons at ready positions. "Impressive construction," Kellix noted, examining the interior, "especially for castaways using salvage technology." "We're adaptable," Lena said simply. Thomas joined them, carrying several data tablets. "I've prepared summaries of our research here, including our work with the native microorganisms and their applications." Director Kellix accepted a tablet with long, elegant fingers. "Ah yes, the flux organisms Commander Vaznik mentioned, and the energy phenomenon you call the nexus." "You've been briefed," Gareth observed. "The Union monitors all communications," Kellix replied without looking up from the tablet. "Fascinating work, truly. The bioengineering alone would earn you commendations in any Union research institution." Gareth and Lena exchanged glances. But the director continued, finally looking up, "Self-modification using unclassified alien microorganisms. Communication with an unknown energy entity. Unauthorized settlement on a quarantine death world. The violations are extensive." Lieutenant Nira stepped forward from where she had been standing quietly. "Director, if I may, the scientific value here is unprecedented. The humans haven't just survived. They've developed a relationship with Xylon-9 itself." "Precisely my concern, Lieutenant," Kellix replied. "Unknown alien influences affecting human biology and potentially human cognition. The Union protocols are clear: containment, isolation, and thorough study under controlled conditions." Gareth's expression hardened. "We're not lab specimens, Director." "No," Kellix agreed. "You're potentially compromised individuals harboring unknown alien microorganisms and claiming communication with an entity of immense power. The situation practically defines the term existential threat." A tense silence fell over the room. "I'd like to see this nexus," the director finally said. As they moved through the compound toward the sealed chamber, more of the human settlers appeared, watching the procession with wary eyes. Commander Vaznik noted how they moved. There was something different about their gait, more fluid, as if they had achieved perfect harmony with their environment. At the sealed door, Gareth paused. "Before we enter, I need your assurance that you'll approach this with an open mind. The Nexus is sensitive to hostility." Director Kellix's scales rippled in what might have been amusement. "Mr. Porter, I am here to assess a potentially civilization-altering discovery. Rest assured, my mind is quite open to possibilities, including both wonderful and terrible ones." Inside the chamber, the Nexus pulsed more vibrantly than before, its colors shifting rapidly as Director Kellix approached. The security officers raised their weapons instinctively. "It's reacting to you," Lena explained. "It can sense intentions, emotions." "Fascinating," Kellix murmured, circling the energy column. "And you claim this entity communicates. How?" "Not through words," Thomas explained. "Through impulses, images, sensations. It took us months to begin understanding." "And what does it want?" Gareth stepped closer to the Nexus, which calmed slightly at his approach. "To grow. To learn. To transform this world into something more than a hostile environment. To create a place where different forms of life can coexist and evolve together." "Noble goals," Kellix remarked, "if true." His hand moved to a device at his waist, and he began scanning the energy column. The Nexus pulsed erratically in response. "I wouldn't do that," Lena warned. "It doesn't like being analyzed without consent." The director ignored her, adjusting his device for deeper scans. Suddenly, the Nexus flared brilliantly, sending out a pulse that disabled all electronic equipment in the room. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness except for the glow of the Nexus itself. When emergency lighting activated moments later, Director Kellix stood perfectly still, staring at the energy column with an unreadable expression. "It showed me something," he said quietly. "What did you see?" Gareth asked. "Worlds. Countless worlds transformed from hostility to harmony. Life flourishing in places where it should be impossible." The director's voice held a note of wonder that hadn't been there before. Was that real or a form of psychic manipulation? "Both, maybe," Lena suggested. "The Nexus shows possibilities, futures that could exist if we work together." Kellix turned to face them. "The Union cannot allow unregulated access to an entity with this level of power. The potential for weaponization is too great. That's exactly why we kept it hidden," Gareth countered. "We're not interested in weapons or power. We just want to learn from it, to understand what it means for life to adapt rather than conquer." The director's scales shifted through several colors as he considered. "A compromise, perhaps. The Union establishes a permanent research outpost here. Joint operation. Union scientists working alongside your settlers under carefully monitored conditions." "And the Nexus?" Lena asked. "What happens to it?" "It remains exactly where it is," Kellix replied. "Protected and studied, but not exploited. No technology leaves this planet without thorough review." Commander Vaznik, who had remained silent throughout this exchange, finally spoke. "Director, if I may, there's another factor to consider. The humans have altered themselves at a cellular level to survive here. They may not be able to leave Xylon-9, even if they wanted to." All eyes turned to Gareth, who nodded slowly. "He's right. Our symbiosis with the flux organisms is irreversible. We're part of this world now, literally." Director Kellix's expression shifted subtly. "Then you truly have bound your fate to this planet. An interesting choice." "Not a choice," Thomas corrected. "A necessity that became a blessing. The flux organisms saved us, and in return, we're helping them and the Nexus transform Xylon-9." "Transform it into what?" Kellix asked. Gareth smiled for the first time since the director's arrival. "Into the first truly symbiotic world, a place where life adapts together rather than competing. The Nexus believes this could be a model for environments throughout the galaxy. The director paced slowly around the chamber, considering. Finally, he turned to his security team. Return to the ship. Prepare transmission protocols for a Class 1 discovery report. After they had left, Kellex addressed the humans directly. What you've accomplished here defies everything we thought we knew about adaptation and survival. It raises profound questions about the nature of life itself. Questions worth exploring together, Lena suggested. Perhaps, the director conceded. But understand this. If the Nexus or these flux organisms pose any threat to the wider galaxy, the Union will not hesitate to quarantine this entire planet permanently. Gareth nodded. Fair enough. But first, there's something else you should see. He led them to a section of the compound they hadn't visited before, a massive transparent dome overlooking a valley that stretched toward the horizon. But unlike the hellish landscape they had seen upon arrival, this valley showed signs of transformation. Near the compound, crystalline structures had softened, taking on organic shades. Plants, not earth plants, but something new, pushed through the once toxic soil. Flowing streams carved paths through the terrain, their waters neither acidic nor caustic but clear. The terraforming has already begun, Lena explained. Not to make Xylon-9 like Earth or any other known world, but to create balance between what it was and what it can become. How is this possible? Lieutenant Nira whispered, pressing her hand against the transparent barrier. The time scale for such changes should be centuries, not months. The Nexus accelerates adaptation, Thomas explained. It's rewriting the very chemistry of this world, guided by what it learns from us, and we learn from it. Director Kellex stood in silence, watching as a flying creature, something between bird and insect, soared through the toxic atmosphere unharmed, landing on one of the new plants. New species, he murmured. You're creating new species. Not creating, Gareth corrected. Facilitating. The potential was always here, it just needed the right catalyst. As they watched, the sun broke through Xylon-9's perpetual clouds for the first time in recorded history, casting golden light across the transformed valley. What happens now? Vasnik asked quietly. Director Kellex turned to face them all, the Union scientists and the human settlers who had become something new. Now, he said, we rethink everything we thought we knew about the limits of life, and perhaps we learn from those we once thought weaker than ourselves. In that moment, as light touched a world that had known only darkness, something shifted in the balance of understanding between species. The humans of Xylon-9 had not just survived the impossible, they had reimagined what was possible in the first place. And as the news spread throughout the galaxy in the days that followed, other worlds began to wonder what other death sentences might actually be invitations to transformation, waiting for those brave enough, or desperate enough, to embrace them. Retroclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. As Director Kellex's report traveled through the secure channels of the Galactic Union, it caused ripples that would soon become waves. Emergency sessions were called. Classification protocols were rewritten. The very definition of habitable was questioned. Back on Xylon-9, the transformation continued. Each sunrise revealed new growth, new life emerging from what had once been barren. The Valley of Death was becoming a cradle of innovation. They're calling us the Impossible Colony, Lena remarked one evening, reviewing the communications from Earth. There are already volunteers lining up to join us. Gareth looked out over their expanding settlement, where Union scientists now worked alongside the original humans, learning the language of adaptation rather than conquest. They still don't quite understand, he said quietly. This isn't about conquering the unconquerable. No, agreed Thomas, joining them at the viewpoint. It's about becoming part of something greater. Commander Vasnik, who had chosen to remain as the Union's permanent liaison, stood with them watching the sunset paint impossible colors across a sky that had once been perpetually hidden. In all my years of exploration, the alien scientist said, I never imagined finding wisdom in surrender rather than victory. Not surrender, Lena corrected gently. Partnership. As night fell on Xylon-9, the Nexus pulsed with renewed brilliance, sending tendrils of light across the transformed landscape. New life responded, glowing in harmony with the energy that had once been feared. Throughout the galaxy, other death worlds waited, not as challenges to be conquered, but as conversations yet to begin. And humanity, having learned the language of Xylon-9, was ready to listen. Perhaps that had always been their greatest strength, not their ability to survive against all odds, but their willingness to become something new when survival alone wasn't enough. They said no one could survive on Xylon-9, Gareth whispered to the night. They were right. We didn't survive it. We became part of it. And in that becoming, they had rewritten the stars.